Many numbers that we should be able to find that we cannot, and a lot of money that Kenya says it owes, but the senator saying actually we don't. And we're going to be looking to a number of issues. But before we do that, CT, you have some money in your pocket that we actually are allowed to use.
Not only are you allowed to use it, you see, the money in my pocket is one of these things that you consider a delightfully happy cycle. You spend, you earn points. In fact, the term Milele is good because it's continuous.
Yeah.
It goes on and on and on and on and on and on.
See?
That's what it does. Now,
Yes.
Milele Points is what I&M Bank offers you with its World Credit MasterCard. And I&M Bank are saying, look, if you go to the I&M Bank on the Go platform and register, that's what you get. But in addition to this, if you happen to be the 20th person to register, you also stand a chance of winning what? 50,000 Milele points. I didn't say it, but let me say it now. 1 Milele point equal to 1 shilling, which means 50,000 Milele points would equal 50,000 Kenya shillings. Yes.
Beautiful stuff. How
Lovely
do I get
stuff.
it? On the Go app.
On the Go app.
Okay, great. All right. Before we came, rather before we went on the break, we talk about the fact that, you know, it is from the Auditor General whose job it is. She is her office holds the responsibility of reporting of government spend. We know that the controller of budget essentially says, yes, you may go ahead and spend. Now, after you spent, the Auditor General comes in and says, okay, this is how you have spent. This is the money that we can find. This is what we cannot find. She goes ahead to say, actually, you know what? Maybe it wasn't actually used, and she leaves it as that, according to what you've said. Because one would expect that if you didn't spend it right, and when an audit report comes in, there would be recommendations that would be made in terms of, number one, then tell us how you actually spent this money, or if you didn't, show us where this money is. Should those be coming from her office?
Yes, and even sending matters to law enforcement.
But what we did hear her say just a few weeks ago, she said to Parliament directly when she was actually before the Senate, and she said that it is then up to Parliament to do the rest. These are words she said.
Yes, but Parliament does not audit. When you give Parliament an incomplete statement that we cannot tell whether the money was used effectively or not.
And then I give it to you to
now,
go and
Parliament is
find
not an auditing body.
So
Tell Parliament this money was lost.
So essentially, you're saying that if it isn't conclusive in the manner that you suggested, then Parliament is crippled.
Yes.
What then do they pursue?
And Parliament has only 3 months to look at all the audits. You see, you should give us an audit. First of all, an audit report is supposed to be complete. A citizen like me should be able to use that report and act on it.
Should it not, then you're saying it should have action points, meaning given what I have documented, I recommend the following.
Yes.
Should she recommend?
She does not. She just says, no, Article 229 clause 6
Yes.
says an audit report. Maybe I should just read it out.
Yes.
So that I don't paraphrase it. I read it out and we say, because it is very, very important to get to understand where the problem really is. And maybe as I look at this up, you could also be looking up the other thing. And to look up the it's a 229 clause 6. If I can look at my statement, it says an audit report shall confirm whether or not public money has been applied lawfully and in an effective way. Shall confirm.
Okay.
She did not confirm.
She has never confirmed anything. She gives us woolly reports. Parliament is not an auditing arm. Confirm to us in that report that this money has been lost. Then Parliament can say, okay, take this action, do the other action. Or me as a private citizen, invoking Article 1, acting directly, can then act on that report.
Okay.
Because the audit report cannot be reopened by Parliament. Parliament does not audit.
So that means, Senator, you're saying that the audit report that is submitted is inconclusive.
It's incomplete.
Okay. So, and why this is important, essentially, if we look at the genesis from where we started this conversation, is that we've come from a place whereby there is a huge amount of money that is, and we're going to put it in inverted, that it is owed, quote unquote, owed by Kenya. And we also know that debt is the first charge on any kind of revenue for the country. That's the first charge.
Yes.
We also go to the place whereby over the last 10 years, it has been seen that there's quite a lot of money that has been borrowed, but it has not gone to what it's supposed to go to.
In fact, we are paying 82% of our taxes.
Right. So for
go
every
to debt.
So for every 100 shillings that Kenya earns,
yes.
82 of those shillings goes towards
pay
paying debt. And so you then have only 18 shillings that's supposed to do the rest of all of these things.
Including paying salaries.
Right? Paying salaries. So now, in order to find out if truly the money that is owed by Kenya to all these other different entities is actually owed, this information then must come from the Auditor General, because she and her office do this report for the nation. And that's what we look like in terms of the trajectory.
Not only that, I'll read for you 229 clause 4, paragraph G. It says, within 6 months after the end of each financial year, the Auditor General shall audit and report in respect of that financial year on G, the public debt. The other day you saw the president putting together a task force to investigate public debt. What has been happening to this provision of the Constitution? You saw the other day the document I've shared. The Auditor General says, I have done a special audit over the last 10 years, and I've discovered about 1 point something trillion shillings in commercial loans cannot be traced. Were there no Auditor Generals over those 10 years?
There were.
Yeah.
Okay. And why are you not auditing Ruto? The 10 years she has audited is Uhuru. If you are doing a special, why have you left Ruto out? That is politics. Why have you audited only Uhuru? Ruto has been in power for 2 years. Why are you not auditing him? So when the Auditor General begins playing politics with us and publishing funny figures, we should not allow it. And also there's no room for those kind of audits. The law is very clear. Within 6 months at the end of each financial year, the Auditor General shall audit and report in respect of the financial year on the accounts of the national and county governments, accounts of all funds and authorities, whatever. Where is she getting the power to do the 10 years audit she's trying to tell us she's doing? Where are the audit reports for those 10 years? Who was the Auditor General?
Because
why did he audit those things?
So for each fiscal year, of those 10 years, there actually should be an audit report on how the money was spent, and then what would then be recommended to be done should anything be out of place. Okay.
The only value that thing that was published, the only value it has for us is to tell us that the Auditor General is not working. If you can come and tell us that, okay, we've looked at 10 years, now we have found that so much was missing. What were you doing in those years?
Okay.
This is an office with perpetual succession.
What's one to do? What is one to do? This is an office that is tasked with the responsibility essentially of being the accountant for government.
Yes.
What then do you do if you're saying constitutionally that the complete cycle of this office's job has not been met over and over and over again? And what it equates to is that trillions of shillings then are unaccounted for.
To disband that office, the entire office, and set it up afresh. That's when people realize the enormity of the problem we have. We cannot be taken around in circles and people are dying in this country. Kenyans are running out to be slaves. Today, if you got a ship from Europe and it stands in Mombasa and says slaves required in Europe, you will not have room on that ship. Kenyans will run and fill, and some of them will be PhD holders, will be engineers, will be doctors. We can't allow that to continue. And if there's any swamp to be cleared, that's the swamp. Public finance.
Yes. Now, Senator, if you look at within 6 months of the end of each financial year, the Auditor General shall audit and report in respect of that financial year on. And I just want to look at Part G, the public debt and the
debt.
accounts of any other entity legislation required the Auditor General to audit.
Yes.
Now, if we talk about just the audit of the public debt in the country with
Yes.
regard to the report that has come from the Office of the Auditor General,
Yeah.
what is she saying with regard to that? Leave alone the audit of projects that have been done and those that have not been done well, just on public debt.
Well, there's a form of admission that it is a bit scattered, but she's sort of admitting that money cannot be accounted for. Yeah. There's an admission that money cannot be accounting for. That's what we agree on. But I'm saying that, why is it coming so late in the day after Kenyans are complaining and what have you? She's now playing politics, and then you go and give us a report covering Uhuru Kenyatta, and you leave out Ruto.
But the odious debts that we speak of did not begin with Uhuru or Ruto, did it?
Enormously began with the enormity of it is that our debt up to when Kibaki left was 2.7 trillion.
Yes.
Right now we're about 12 trillion, depending on according, and you have said it's about 12 trillion. Eh? Now that spike in borrowing has happened under the Jubilee government and under the Kenya Kwanza government. And that's why you've seen in my petition, I'm suing Uhuru Kenyatta for a recovery of about 4.6 trillion. And I'm suing William Ruto for a recovery of about 2.3 trillion. So that's how we come up with 6.9 trillion, 4.6 and 2.3. That is 6.9 trillion that I've been able to trace in the Treasury's books that was borrowed under their watch, under their command, outside the law, and it cannot be seen what it has done. And I'm saying, Mr. Ruto, Mr. Uhuru, give us back this money. And I've attached your officials there who are working with you, the cabinet secretaries, the PSs and stuff like that. So I'm saying, Mr. Ruto, Mr. Uhuru, give us back this money. We need it. The 6.9 trillion, we need it. That's what I've been able to establish from the treasury side of things. But then, of course, as I said, there's this other 6.1, which is even to me still a mystery because it's now in the central bank side.
Yeah.
I've not been able to, because the central bank doesn't publish its accounts as much as the treasury is doing. And also you'll find that to the benefit of people who do this, the treasury has tried to be faithful to in terms of publishing the accounts monthly. They do that. And they do a words and all. They give us a words and all image of what is happening.
So there's nothing hidden. It
From the
is
treasury side.
It is up to you.
It's up to us to decipher it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Senator, we talk about these matters, the reports that we get, and even the public document that you share to us. It's something that is in the purview of the public, and these reports are equally shared with Parliament.
Yeah.
Over the years that you talk about, the 10 years, we have had Parliament. Has Parliament been party to the misdeeds that is befalling Kenyans today?
In terms of criminal negligence, Parliament has been very negligent. Because if Parliament approved only 2 trillion, 2.3 trillion, and Kibaki, under the Kibaki Parliament had approved 2.7 trillion, that comes to about 5 trillion. And the executive has paid 8 trillion. And the Parliament is approving those payments. The Parliament should be questioning it. You see? But somebody's not doing their work. And then you see the other thing now, like for me, I'm a senator. And these people have short-circuited the Senate out of the budget. So I'm just an observer like any of us. I have no voice in these matters in Parliament, officially. I have no voice. So that's why I have to go to court and litigate.
It would appear that matters are a lot graver than, just figures on paper, and that we don't see the damage that essentially these funds missing would actually do. And usually when we want to be able to see a loss, we have to then look at what these kind of monies would then be able to do. And that's how we can actually see that if it was
But you even look at simple things like on Friday, maybe that will help people think I'm not crazy. On Friday, I won a very big case. Whereby, you remember when the NIC Bank and the Commercial Bank of Africa merged?
Yes.
Under President Uhuru's regime. They gave them an exemption from paying tax. on the merger, on the assets. Now, the assets were about 700 billion. The bank is right now about 900 billion shillings worth in assets. At the time, it was 700 billion when it merged to form one bank. It became the third largest bank in Kenya.
Yeah.
Now, the tax was supposed to be 1.2% of those assets, which gives us 7 billion shillings, 7.4 billion shillings. Okay? Then the president, through Ukuru Yatani, gives himself a waiver. You see? So, I went to court to challenge this thing. I said, how do you give yourself a waiver? What is the public interest here? So, we have fought in court, and on Friday, 3 days ago, the court gave a verdict and agreed with me and says that waiver was illegitimate and the bank should pay the 7 billion shillings to the court, to the taxpayer.
Yes.
You see?
Okay.
So if that's a small transaction, that kind of money is being stolen from the public.
On a regular.
You can understand these huge figures, how they add up. And remember that Kenya's budget is bigger than the budgets of all the other East African countries combined. This is how rich Kenya is.
So repeat that again,
Kenya's
please.
budget is bigger than the budget of the other East African countries combined, except maybe the DRC, which has come in the other day.
No, DRC is, yes.
Yeah. But if you take Rwanda, Burundi, Uganda, Tanzania, South Sudan, Somalia, whatever, their budget, when you add those budgets together, does not reach the size of the budget of Kenya. That's how rich Kenya is. And so we have to get very serious with this country.
All right. I want us to look now at, because one of the things that keeps hitting Kenya in the face is the Eurobond issue.
Yeah.
We're looking at 117 billion shillings that's owed in less than 24 months. And that is not, like I keep saying, is not an abeg kind of thing. You won't say, give me till next month. It's due, right?
Yeah.
Now, I want us to do a little bit of helping us understand a little bit more about the Eurobond and what exactly a Eurobond is. There are many of us who use this term and not quite sure. We just say Kenya owes on the Eurobond. First of all, let's start there and let's look at those numbers and essentially what those funds that came as a result of the Eurobond float then were used for.
So the Eurobond is just a market for commercial loans that issues bonds and to governments and other corporates, and it's usually dominated in these hard currencies. So you can go and buy. It's a commercial loan sort of market, a market for commercial loans. It's not like the bilateral loans that governments can negotiate with other governments and get favorable terms. So it's a commercial loan that you go and borrow. And basically that is what we are dealing with, that we have gone to this market and borrowed this money. But the Eurobond, we have to understand another thing is that before they went for the Eurobond, again, these are now the crime that Parliament committed. When you look at the Constitution, Article 206, it's very clear that all money raised by government must be deposited in the consolidated fund.
Fund, yes.
Or in a fund set up by Parliament. It's excluded from the consolidated fund. Now, they went ahead and amended, I think, Section 57 of the Public Finance Management Act and introduced capacity for government when it borrows this money to keep this money in offshore accounts. You see? That the cabinet secretary can choose to keep the money in an offshore account. Now, that's Parliament now doing that, undermining the constitutional requirement. So right now, you can borrow money and keep it offshore, purported to pay people offshore.
And our constitution allows it.
No. Secondly, by the Public Finance Management Act, the amendments that were made in the Finance Act of 2015 Finance Act, 2014 Finance Act, there was a clause that was inserted in the Finance Act to amend the Public Finance Management Act so that the executive can borrow money offshore and open accounts offshore and keep that money in the offshore without bringing it here. Now what comes here is the debt, not the money.
And according to our laws, up until that amendment, stipulated that monies borrowed must find its way to the consolidated fund.
Yes.
All of it. So that Parliament can then appropriate it and the control of budget can supervise how it is used.
Yes.
But now we borrow money, keep it out. The oversight institution of Parliament, the oversight institution of the control of budget, have no access to that money. There's no oversight they can do. So the executive now runs its own show. The money is up, and whether those accounts are being used for the public good, you have no way of telling it.
But that is a very good thing, though. It is a very good thing. Because if it came into the consolidated fund, it would then form a cluster with all very many other funds that we have in the country. But for purposes of understanding an odious debt, have they not provided us with the perfect platform where we can determine? Because if it is in that account, we know it didn't reach here.
Yes.
But we know it was borrowed.
Yes.
So where did it go to?
That's one of the things we're
And
asking.
how can you tell Kenyans to pay for it?
Yeah, can you pay for it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they have actually, it is a wonderful thing that they have done.
Yeah.
Yes, because now one doesn't have to grapple with looking at details of, okay, there was this consolidated fund, there are all these monies in it, so this one, where does it feature?
But,
they have separated it for us.
Because even
Yes.
remember, the law says you only borrow for development purposes.
Yes.
So here's
yes.
the question where you've borrowed, it's in offshore accounts
Yes.
and ostensibly
Yes.
to be used to pay our debtors.
Oh, this is very good.
So,
Yes.
even as we look at all of these, we're looking at these numbers, one would ask the question that when you put such figures in this documentation, and I'm still using the 18 billion shillings as an example, and that when it is clear that some money actually didn't actually touch ground zero, ground zero being Kenyan accounts, it seems pretty obvious that that money is not available. You cannot see it.
Yeah, you can't.
But they did, it seems as though this was done based on the fact that there's, or rather based on the expectation that Kenyans actually will not read. And even if they did, they will not understand. And it seems as though these things were then hidden in plain sight because the likelihood of anybody turning over the rock then is very low. It seems genius because that's a way for you to be able to get away with murder, essentially.
Yeah, it is. And that unfortunate thing that it turns into deaths in this country. It turns into kids not being able to access education. Look at the mess in the universities now. It turns into us having dilapidated infrastructure. It turns into Kenyans being very, very desperate and not happy. They're just struggling. People are just living in poverty, extreme poverty. And then there's just a clique of suckers who are just sucking money out of this country. And they call themselves leaders. And they go around and they engage in a lot of tamasha to mesmerize us with all the opulence and what have you. So these are the things that we need to deal with. But when you talk of money being kept abroad, there's also another thing that has also come up.
Oh no!
In terms of the budget, and this one is in the budget, and it's not, this one's not being pushed by Western countries themselves. This thing called appropriation in aid. It's also another violation of Article 2, Clause 6, whereby loans, if you could look at page 7 of my document, you can see that table 4. Page 7. Page 7, page 7, page 7, page 7. Yes, table 4 and table page 7. Look at paragraph 22. Paragraph 22 there.
There, okay.
Yeah. Now you look at now this one is an extract from the development expenditure for 2014-2015 financial year. I've just extracted it where it is and pasted it here. Now look at it is headed the thing in the document, the government document, the budget book, from the budget book, 2014-2015 budget book. The heading in the budget book is table 3, details of external funding listed by donors. That's table 4. Now, the first column has loan number.
Yes.
The second column has got lenders. The third column has got loan, then it's broken into A in AIA and revenue. Then there's the total amount. Now, AIA means appropriation in aid. It means the donor does not give money to Kenya. The donor gets people to come and do work in Kenya.
Yes.
Okay? So like if you look at the government of Belgium, the Ministry of
Education.
and whatever, you find there is 800 million,
Yeah.
sorry, that's given. But there's no revenue. No revenue is coming to Kenya.
So money didn't actually come into
No, it didn't
Kenya.
actually come.
Yeah.
So the Belgians are saying, okay, we'll come into work in your country.
Yeah.
Show us where we can do this.
Yes.
It's like I'm lending you money to come and buy from my kiosk.
Yeah, but you're going to pay me back.
Yeah, we're
but
gonna
I
pay
didn't
back.
actually give you the
Yes.
money.
Yeah.
But how am I benefiting? My people are coming to work. I'm employing them.
They're getting
I'm
paid.
doing all those. I have no control
They're paying
on the
taxes back
costs.
home.
I have no control on anything. Parliament has got no say. So you'll find that it then goes to that. And when you run down, the government of Italy is 180 million. You go down and the total figure at the bottom on page 10 is 100 billion in A, that's the loans we are getting. Only 36 billion is cash given to Kenyans for us to plan with and whatever. So at a total of 136 billion. Is the, out of 136 billion, 100 billion does not come to Kenya.
But you're paying it back.
But you're going to pay, that brings us the loans are coming here. But you're paying it back. So we have got no control on the cost, we have no control on anything. They say, okay, so as you are planting, you shall come and plow and plant maize and harvest for you and do whatever. And then you'll pay us.
Okay, I need to understand. Okay, we're going to take another break, because I think it's necessary to breathe lest you burst something. But the truth here, so when we talk about MOE, we're looking at Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Energy and Petroleum and such.
Yeah.
So what we are saying is that if you borrow 136 billion, like we've seen has happened here, only about 36 billion shillings have you been able to see that actually comes in
cash.
money that has been received across ministries.
Yes.
100 billion shillings is money that's paid to nationals of these different countries
Yes.
when they come in and do the
Yes,
work.
do their work.
They come in and they give their expertise, as it were.
Yeah.
You talk about consultants coming in to do 1, 2, 3. So when we actually see that they come here and they have these meetings, or like if the president goes out on a state visit, for example, and says, we have been able to have consultations whereby there will be development partnership between country X and Kenya, this is essentially what we're talking
This is
about.
what you're talking about.
So when we are saying that loans have been secured to the amount of 100 billion shillings,
Yeah.
that money is not coming
They're
here,
coming here.
but Kenya is paying it
Kenya is
back.
paying it.
Now, is it possible to have conversations around this kind of borrowing that doesn't hinge on this kind of behavior? Because it is clear that it is keeping Kenya in a position of poverty, number one, and it's making it very easy for a lot of these funds to be misappropriated.
Yeah, and when you come and look at the various budgets and you look at the administrative component of these loans, which are paid to the nationals of these countries, is mind-boggling. So it's one area of massive theft, massive looting from our country by our development partners.
And should Kenyans be asked to pay that money back?
We should, but now, of course, this particular one is unfortunately in the budget Parliament has approved. So it's just Parliament which has not done its work to say, why are we doing this? But Parliament has approved this particular one. This one we have to pay. It's not an odious thing or anything, but it's an arrangement that is detrimental to this country. Because when you look at these loans, over 50% goes to administration, which means these people are living a luxurious life, they are going to these big hotels, they are doing then about a very small section then comes to the development itself.
Right.
Let them give us the money, we pay our people at the salaries that are commensurate in Kenya, we do our development. Or they keep this money. That's the position you have to
don't
reach.
loan it.
Don't loan it, because we are just being looted.
It's 25 minutes to 9 o'clock. The senator from Busia County, Okiya Omutatah, is here this morning, and we're looking at some of these issues. He says, don't loan it. If you can actually give it to Kenya, and then we show that it's actually going somewhere to do something for Kenyans, keep your money.
Yeah.
Keep your money. 25 to 9. We'll be back after this.
This is Dental Tips, brought to you by Sensodyne. The 2-minute rule. Brush smarter, not faster. Dentists recommend brushing for 2 minutes twice a day. Pair that with Sensodyne Toothpaste Advanced Daily Care.
People come to me and they say they get discomfort when they have ice cream. I recommend Sensodyne because it works. It's brilliant.
Unveiling Kenya's finest travel gems all in one place. From luxurious hotels to hidden dining treasures, Msafiri.ke is your ultimate gateway to the best of Kenya. Explore breathtaking destinations and must-visit spots effortlessly. Browse, book, and experience the heart of Kenyan hospitality with just a tap. Dive into Msafiri.ke now. Log in, secure your dream getaway, or call 0719-012-561 today.
Unasonga huko Kirumali mbali unatoa then you come back when you are not near part. Sawa sawa.
Okay mtosi.
Usipo umeniitia hizo wazimu sasa. Nimekuja tu kwa sababu umeniambia kuna nini?
Sasa nikwambie mama.
Hatuna kitu mama.
Mwambao. Ile kitu utaenda kunjionea leo. Sikundanganyi. Ni ajabu.
Makaa inaendaje kwa nyama? Na mimi ndio nauliza. Hizi senyu zinaingiaje kwa makaa?
Wale nikikona hivi mikakati nijeke kona. Ndio ngone kwa. Tuta fuata vile tuli. Unajua kitu moja inaitwa mikakati.
Leta mtu wa manage nyumba yake.
Mimi msichana nitafuta hapa. Nilete panga inikate. Inikate mkuu.
Excuse me sister kidogo. Ani majirani wako?
Kabisa.
My good neighbor.
Na wewe? Ulikucha lini?
Nasingo, twende.
Tupige hiyo kitu yenye mna.
We value your feedback and welcome your comments, queries, and complaints regarding our content.
Sure that these things is not happening. We can talk about all of that and we can establish that. But then the question is, what do? We must have conversations that are pointing towards solutions. And so what must happen? Because it seems to be a song that has been sung. I mean, you've gone to court, you've petitioned, you've asked for certain things to be done. I mean, your guess is as good as mine in terms of what's going to happen with the ruling that came out on Friday. That will we actually see that 7 billion shillings returned to the taxpayer? Or is it going to be an assumption that court orders are a suggestion? So what should be done in terms of moving forward?
I think what we need to do is very simple, is to implement the Constitution. Kenyans must come up and look at Chapter 12 and demand that Chapter 12, which is on public finance, is implemented to the letter, including separating the Treasury from the Ministry of Finance, so that, as contemplated in the Constitution, politicians don't have control of public money. The president should not have control of public money. Put all this money into the consolidated fund. Let the Law Society come up and help us clean out the laws, like those sections of the Public Finance Management Act that are letting people hide money out. Let them come up and help us clean out those sections and allow for, and allow for proper fiscal discipline to take place. Let us set up a sovereign wealth fund. We begin saving. Kenya is a country that should be giving loans to the IMF, not borrowing from the IMF. Kenya should give loans to the IMF, not borrow from the IMF. That's where we should be heading to. This country is heavily blessed. This country is heavily rich, right from the human resource to the natural resources. So let us get back and take control of Chapter 12 of the Constitution, implement that chapter to the letter, control public finances, and let those people who stole this money be held to account. Let us recover this money from wherever it is. It comes back here. There are many ways of recovery. We can give the Uhuru regime an amnesty. We can give the Ruto regime an amnesty and say within this time, return this money. We shall do nothing about it to you. We proceed ahead. But we need to sit across the table with each other, look each other in the eye and say, this is an existential threat to this country. And either we want Kenya to stop existing as a sovereign state, where we shall be under the debt burden and shall be slaves, or we want this country to be the free land of the people who are sovereign and who can manage their own affairs and who can stand up to any in the world. We have to make that choice. Either we want to be slaves or we want to be free people. And if we want to be free people, we must sit across the table and say, where did the rain begin beating us and how do we dry ourselves now that we are soaking? Yes.
Is it possible to trace? I mean, we talk about having a footprint across board. The money that is not seen, can it be traced down to the individuals who made the order for certain monies to be moved from point A to point B? Is that possible?
Very possible. And it's a question of political will. And that's why Kenyans have now to take their politics very seriously and see whom do they give power to govern. And if they give power to the right person to govern, he'll be able to fix these things. It's called for political will, and that political will that understands politics as a call to service. Politics as a call to service. If that understanding is made, then we'll be able to get to a point whereby whatever happens, Kenyans will be able to recover themselves. And we have also to begin defining our friends. A lot of these people, countries we call our friends, are just our enemies that are stealing from us.
Let me ask this question. If we can legally prove the wrong that has been committed in the acquisition of these debts, would it give us an adequate platform from which to start a softer way of looking at it, renegotiations?
First of all, there's a whole doctrine of odious debt. It's called the doctrine of odious debt in international law.
Yes, it's by somebody called Alexander Nahum Sack.
Yes.
Yes.
And it begins with when the Americans kicked the Cubans and then the Spaniards out of Cuba.
Yes.
The Spaniards had shackled Cuba with debts. And so they said, okay, Americans, you are the new masters, you pay these debts. Americans says, we are not going to pay debts that did not benefit Cuba. You took these debts to benefit yourselves, and Cuba cannot pay it. And that's how the doctrine of odious debt begins. And recently in Mozambique, if you heard of the tuna gate, the tuna scandals, of the Eurobonds that were involved, were secured on tuna prospects, civil society groups in Mozambique were able to go to the High Court of Mozambique, and some went to the European Court, and they got orders that said that debt was odious, and the people of Mozambique should not pay. Some of these things we have to litigate, and that's why I've gone to court on this 13 trillion, trying to ask our High Court to declare it as an odious debt. Then from there we begin negotiating. Do Kenyans pay an odious debt?
In fact, the SAC doctrine of 1927 can be summarized quite simply. There are 3 points that one looks at. Whether this particular debt was incurred with public consent. If it wasn't, whether it was used for public benefit. Thirdly, whether the lenders knew or should have known that the funds would be misused.
Yeah, the obligation of the duty to care by the lender.
Yes, exactly.
The duty to care.
Now, in our case, from everything we presented, these are things that can be proved.
The three of them, for all the three.
Yes, they can be proved.
Yeah, and when you talk about it being proven, there's now the aspect of the law that you say we must respect and uphold and implement the Constitution, which then brings about the institutions that the Constitution gives. Now, here we talk about the Attorney General as the chief advisor of the government. What are some of the agreements that the government enters with those that gave us this debt? Now, LSK, in terms of shaping up the entire legislation and making sure that people do not take advantage of the loopholes in the law. Now, we talk about the CS of Treasury. What kind of engagements does he have on behalf of the government and making sure that policy is put in place to make sure that Kenya is not stolen from, as well as CBK? You say CBK as well in its report seems to be having loopholes in it. How do we seal that from the government perspective? But then again, we go back to Parliament. Who are the people who audit these reports and go through them? How then do we ensure that all these institutions play ball in the same courtyard for the benefit of the people of Kenya? I think that summarizes what needs to be done.
Yes, I think so. But it's a wake-up call for all Kenyans.
You know, Dennis, what you say is absolutely true. It will be part of the entire process of understanding odious debts and dealing with it.
Dealing with it, yes.
One of them, again, will be restructuring of our financial systems.
Yeah.
Because in the absence of that, these are things that can be perpetrated again. Remember that little loophole that was brought in? That little loophole. It is one of these hidden blessings that we have. Yeah. Because in bringing that loophole...
I like the way you're looking at it.
Yes, it is. Because they went and exposed this thing in ways that nobody else could have exposed it. How do you take money from a sovereign state which has a system through which it receives money, create a new one that is opaque? How? How can that stand in the bright glare of any legal process? Does that not seem to indicate nefarious intent?
I mean, even city that we are borrowing money, but people who are implementing the projects that will benefit the people of Kenya are the lenders themselves. I mean, how do we pay citizenry who are not Kenyans and they pay taxes back to their country?
By the way, when it comes to borrowing from other countries, let me explain this to you. It's actually an economic question. And the response is also economic. When people give you a grant, or grant mostly, it doesn't involve money directly. It involves equipment, it involves personnel.
Yes.
It's part of the loan. Now, it has been the practice for the longest time. But this goes back to our negotiators.
Yes.
The people who negotiate. We've asked that question here many times. Who are these people?
Who are the people who are sent to negotiate on
these
part of
things
the
for us?
behalf of the
Because
country?
when you look at the outcome, you have to ask, what on earth did we negotiate?
Or did you go in intentionally with, did you go with that intent to bungle the thing?
And that's
from
the
beginning?
failure. One of the big elephant in the room is the professional organs.
Yes.
The professional bodies. Like something happened in Uganda the other day that really excited me. There was a judge who was very corrupt, but the system protected this judge. The Law Society of Uganda withdrew the practice license.
If you're not going to sack him, let's now
he's
not make it
not
possible to
nobody.
practice.
So he can't practice.
You can't practice. You see. So if our professional bodies were to crack down on the Attorney General, you are the Attorney General of Kenya, you are a member of the Law Society.
Yes.
Okay, you are an advocate. How did you sign on to this? You are an engineer. You're a member of the Engineer Society of Kenya, whatever it's called. How did you certify this road?
Okay.
How did you do this? So if the professionals stand up, that's the prophetic voice. In the Bible, in the old system, we used to have the priest, the king, and occasionally the prophet.
The prophet. Yeah.
So the prophetic voice today is the professional who should come up and say this is substandard.
But where the problem arises, Senator, is that many of these professionals are complicit. So there are certain things you cannot do without the input of professionals. You cannot.
Almost everything.
Yes.
You can.
So if they're complicit, do you think they're going to sit back and allow the process that we're talking about to take place? They will fight it. If you are the Attorney General, do you really think, because everything we are saying comes back to, all right, we signed off on this. The Attorney General is the advisor of the government on these legal matters. Did they not understand the laws that pertain to these things and the pitfalls that we were hurtling towards? How did they allow us to pen our names on behalf of the citizens of this country on such a thing? How?
You see, like I'm having an issue in my county. The governor and this group decided to deny me access to source documents and what have you. So we are litigating against him because I won't be able to access source documents of the document. I don't want to go out and talk to at funerals and entertain people that, hey, the governor is this, the governor. I want to have that kind of data. So I would deny me source documents. I'm in court trying to get the source documents. But outside that, I've decided to do some audit and I've been able to access the vote book from the IFMIS and what have you. When you go through these documents and you look at Dr. Agendo's report, you really get sad.
Why?
Because what has come up to my eyes is that about 4 billion shillings in the financial year 2022-2023 in Busia cannot be accounted for. What has been misappropriated?
It can't be accounted
Cannot be accounted for or will not be accounted for?
Well, to be accounted for, will must be. If the law takes its course, somebody will go to jail.
Yes.
You see something like tea and snacks in the governor's office.
Tea and snacks.
Yeah, was given about 3 million shillings in the budget.
Okay.
But when you look at the payment, if you look at the IFMIS vote book, the tea and snacks as a code has been paid 5 times just by changing the code. The title remains tea and snacks, but the code has been changed by 1 digit or 2 digits. They paid 5 times and they pay over 20 million.
For tea and snacks.
Yeah. So which turns to about 2 million shillings on mandazi in a month.
A lot of tea and mandazi.
So these kind of things are there. And when you do all through them, but when you go and look at the Auditor General's report, she never examined the vote book. She didn't even follow the law when I was auditing, because the law requires that the accounting officers, the individual heads of the various ministries, should send their report by 30th of September.
Yes.
Then the Minister for Finance in the county consolidates also their reports and makes their summary and sends their report to the Auditor General. Now you look at the audit of Busia, there are no reports from the individual ministry, so you cannot see what I can build this. So there's this sanitized report that has come from the global one that has come from the office of the finance minister.
Yes.
It's the one that is being interrogated. When you look at it, it's not containing a lot of money that has been raised in the county. And then the auditor goes and clears it. You see. So when you look at the statement of when you look at the statement in that audit report, the statement of pending bills. From, I don't know whether it was a mistake or whatever, but the report that the auditor has approved. You look at that statement, you find that Busia County, if you put that statement on a spreadsheet, Busia County has overpaid pending bills by 44 million.
Has overpaid.
Okay.
And yet
they are claiming they have pending bills of 1.9 billion.
You see, when we talk about this, because to really speak in terms of the gatekeepers, you know, but when you talk about the ministries submitting their reports, which begs to ask the question, where are members of the county assemblies? Because they're also sleeping on the job. I mean, it's a question of each and every single person just playing their role and making sure that right is done.
County assemblies, from what we have seen, cannot be relied on to play an oversight role. Because if they were,
yet they should.
Some of these audit queries we keep, they are the ones who raise these audit queries long.
And they don't have the signature.
Yes.
Like me as senator, I have no signature in the county. I have no power really in the county.
Yes.
It's the MCA who has got the power to approve the budget.
Yes.
Who has the power to do the supplementaries.
Yes.
Who signs on everything. But then you find that it's not there. But for Busia, I'm keen to get to the bottom and to make it an example of how a county should be run. And I'm working on that diligently. And I hope that I'll win my case and get the source documents so that I can weave my rag.
You know, there's something that I hear from everything that you're saying, Senator, and that is our members of parliament actually have the tools with which they can actually audit the financial goings on in this country. The auditor's report would assist, but the committee in parliament that deals with the finance could access the same source documents as you do and would be able to even query and interrogate the auditor's report from a position of knowledge.
Yeah.
But is this what happens?
No, it doesn't.
So the complicity of parliament is actually enhanced.
Yes.
Yeah,
because if you neglect to carry out your duties in the fullest manner that you can, if one accuses you then of criminal negligence, they are right to do so.
Yeah, it is criminal negligence. Yes. People die.
I am looking at countries that have actually had cases of odious debt and have won. Oh, there are quite a number actually. The US case in 1898, the Treaty of Paris is what declared that. They said, this thing, you're not paying it. Costa Rica in 1923. South Africa in post-apartheid. They argued that money that was acquired by this apartheid regime, forget it, we are not going to pay this thing. It was negotiated. If you look at Iran, some people said this thing that Saddam Hussein acquired us on our behalf. We're not paying. Ecuador, we're simply saying, and then we come to this continent, look at Mozambique, cases have been won. And winning here means whatever it is that was claimed you should pay, you did not need to pay. And that's when the negotiations came in. Now, our case, when you look at the details, my goodness gracious me, do we have a case?
We have a
very strong case.
Yes. But you need political will.
Yes.
You need political goodwill.
There's so many things that
must elect the correct politicians.
Right. There's so many things that bleed one into the other, Senator. And even as we talk about the oversight role that certain bodies play, there's something you mentioned earlier, and you talked about just being a mere observer. But we know, for example, that the role of oversight falls squarely in Parliament, namely the House of Senate. So do we see as robust an effort as is necessary for some of these things that we talk about?
And that's why I went to court, because my governor says, I cannot give you source documents, wait for the document, wait for the Auditor General's report. And I say, I'm elected to represent the people of Busia.
Yes.
Article 1, Auditor General is Article 229, but Article 1 says the people have donated power to me as a representative.
Yes.
So I want to be able to, in real life, to see that if you are going to do a borehole, like right now, there's a place called the Kapina in my place. I got a report that they're equipping a dry borehole. A borehole is supposed to be 200 meters. You go and you wait for the rains to come. Then the surface water accumulates somewhere on the rock. Then you drill a well that is 40 meters.
And
then you pump. Then you equip it. Then the women dance for you, as they usually do. Then you go, you say, you have done a borehole. When the sun comes, kidogo,
that water is gone.
Yeah. For me to do an audit of that borehole, I want to know what are the source documents? What was the contract? How many meters was this person supposed to drill? And how many meters did the person drill? So when I now come to the Senate, I have that information. And now I can even ask the Auditor General and say, during your audit, and I write to the Auditor General.
Yes.
I say, during your audit, go and look at this thing. Like in the last audit, there was a jalopy that was bought. That was bought in terms of supplying the county. The people who are receiving at the last administration refused to receive it. Then the new government comes in. They pay for that thing
again.
Yes, 13 million shillings. One. Yes, but when you go to Isuzu, Kenya, the vehicle brand new is 5 million.
Wonderful.
A jalopy have paid 13 million. Now, at least that one, because of my complaint, the governor, the auditor has flagged it and captured it. But I wrote a letter saying, can you look at this thing? You see. Now, if there was a way that, and you see, the third thing that I'm a senator, and I'm crying about accessing documents in my county, I've gone to court to look for orders to be allowed, and yet we're supposed to be having open governance where these documents are on the internet.
Yes.
Our time is coming to an end, Senator, and I hear you say, no, please don't be sorry, because, it seems like it's not enough for us to be able to exhaust all of these things, but there must be something in terms of a drop message that has to come out from you today.
No, I think that the salvation is the rule of law. Let us take time to understand our law and demand that those who govern us using the law.
And we are fortunate that we actually have the laws.
Yeah, we're very fortunate.
That can actually support what it is that is being said. We do. We are actually fortunate. We do have laws. Yes.
The Senator from Busia County has been our guest this hour, looking at all of this. It's a lot. And I think even those 2 hours sometimes is not enough for us to look at these things. It's necessary for them to come out in the open so that we are aware of what is going on. And then it gives an impetus for something then to be done about it.